Hey, welcome everyone. If you're just joining, we'd love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. You can share your name, your pronoun, where you're joining us from, your org and union if you have one. All right, see folks joining from all over. We got Arizona, we got Pennsylvania, Florida, New York, Indiana, Kentucky, Delaware. Folks joining from all over. If you're just joining, we're going to get started in just a minute. We would love you to introduce yourself in the chat while we wait to get started. All right, y'all, we are going to jump right in and get started. First, I'm so excited to introduce our Spanish interpreters and our Spanish interpreter, Flavia, who is going to get our Spanish-speaking friends all set up.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Entonces, estas son las instrucciones para conectarse a la interpretación en español. Este webinario va a ser totalmente en inglés y proveemos interpretación disponible al español. Busquen unos puntitos abajo que dice More o más, opriman ahí, luego toquen interpretación de idiomas y luego pueden apretar español y luego toquen Done o Hecho si están en un teléfono móvil. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you. Gracias, Flavia. So welcome everyone to the Billionaire Power Grab webinar. I'm Sandra from Bargaining for the Common Good and Action Center on Race and the Economy. If you're not familiar with us, we work with community and labor to build strong alignments to take on bad actors and villains to win more for our communities rooted in racial and economic justice. I'm going to introduce my co-MC, our research director, Gabriela Noah Betancourt.
Hey everybody, excited to be here with you tonight. Gabby, I use she, her pronouns. I'm the research director at the Action Center on Race and the Economy and excited to dig in on the billionaires tonight. Thanks, Sandra.
We're so excited to see over 400 people on this webinar and folks still coming in here. Just a quick housekeeping, you might have gotten a 2-hour invite for this webinar. We are going to keep it to 1 packed hour for everyone. So we held a first session of this in June where we laid out what the billionaire agenda is and what is coming down the pike. And, you know, we hate being right sometimes, but we really are seeing this agenda in full force that we laid out. So I'm joining from Portland, Oregon, where they've deployed federal troops, where ICE is literally kidnapping parents off the street after they drop off their kids at school. And as many folks are on this call, right, you could share stories about what you're seeing in real time too. So we're seeing these attacks in a really visible way. And sometimes what's less visible is the handful of bad actors and billionaires who are clawing back our democracy, reshaping the economy to take away really any sense of security for working class folks like all of us. So we're here to pull back the curtain on some of the billionaires who are enabling and funding this agenda and just staying in the shadows. But of course, we're not going to stop there. Most importantly, we're here to talk about what to do about it. So whether you're a union member in a contract fight or a community member fighting for housing and healthcare, and you're looking for strategies of what we can all do together. That's what we're going to get into. We have an incredible lineup of speakers. We're going to be hearing from Raquel Jackson Stone, moving some incredible work with One Pennsylvania to take on Pennsylvania's richest billionaire, Jeff Yass, with the payback table. And we're going to be hearing from an incredible team to talk about the organizing on Palantir. So Kathy Carrillo with Mi Gente, Sarah Cullinane from Make the Road States, and Crystal Zermeño leading work with the California Common Good. So we are going to be digging into the billionaire agenda. But first, let's let ourselves dream a little bit about the society we want to see. So we're going to start out by just naming what are our issues and values, right? Like, why are you here? What are you fighting for? So I'll invite you to drop in the chat 10 years from now, what do you want the world to look like? What changes do you want to create, right? All the billionaires do is dream about what they want to create. We're going to let ourselves dream a little bit. So please drop in the chat. All right, I'm seeing healthcare, housing for all, amazing. Actual equity, equal rights for all, solution for extreme income inequality. I'm seeing a lot of healthcare, universal healthcare, no racists, and healthcare for all. Yes. Everyone should be safe, able to pursue their dreams. Beautiful. Affordable housing, open borders, dignity. This is great. So let's talk next about, this is why we're here, right? All the issues that y'all just laid out. This is the future that we're fighting for. Now, let's talk about what's getting in the way of this future. What are we seeing? So what are we seeing in real time? What kind of future are billionaires like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel creating? And if you're not familiar with Peter Thiel, you will hear all about it. So let's see, what are we seeing billionaires create? All right, I see techno dystopia. Yes. The end of electoral college, an extractive economy, exploitation, propaganda machine, pollution. Yes. Climate crisis, right? We're seeing all of these in real time. And we're seeing all of this happen in real time. And we know also the billionaire agenda that we're seeing today has been a really long time in the making, right? We didn't just get here overnight. We know this thing called neoliberalism paved the way. So I'm curious, give me a thumbs up or reaction if you've heard the word neoliberalism or if you're talking about it in your organization or union. All right, I'm seeing a lot of reactions here. So what is neoliberalism? It's like a word we throw around sometimes, right? And we have this kind of wordy definition up here. It's a policy model that encompasses both policies and economics and seeks to transfer the control of economic factors from the public sector to the private sector. Okay, what the heck does that mean? We're going to break it down just a little bit more. So neoliberalism, what is it? It's this idea that corporations should be freed from taxes and regulation, right? So starting in the 1970s, we saw this with Ronald Reagan, passed a lot of neoliberal policies to give corporations and billionaires an enormous amount of wealth and power, and really laid the groundwork to keep cutting jobs and services to give wealthy folks bigger tax breaks. We know our taxes pay for public services like schools, education, all the things that we named that we're fighting for in the chat. And neoliberalism wants to kind of make those services privately owned so they can make money off just basic essential services. So we've seen both Republicans and Democrats move this agenda forward. We see, many Democrats claim to be the party of the working people, but have kind of moved farther away from policies that actually support us. And many of them are driven by deals with Wall Street and more recently tech. So the thing is, we're seeing the failures of a lot of these policies now, right? And just the failures of neoliberalism. So more people, more working class folks, like all of us on this call, are seeing that and they're feeling that, right? We're feeling it. So we have an opening for something new, a new ideology, and the billionaires have some ideas about what can replace that. So we call this new set of ideas we see emerge as neo-reactionaries. So, what do these neo-reactionaries want? They're pushing for this anti-people movement, right? Anti-democracy, anti-people, calling for the replacement of democracy with a corporatized techno-state ruled by a CEO. Okay, what do all those words mean? So, by corporatized, we mean running government like a corporation. And what is a corporation's mission? Making as much profit as possible. And techno state, they mean a system of government where experts with specialized knowledge in science and technology make decisions and manage society. So to break this down even further, right, the reactionaries kind of exploit the politics of people who've really felt alienated or left behind, and they correctly identify that the world's not working, but the solutions they present are pretty harmful. So we just spent some time kind of laying out what these ideas are, but let's look at what it kind of looks like in practice and why these are such harmful, why this is such a harmful approach. Gabby, can you kind of tell us what sort of changes these neo-reactionaries are moving forward? What are we seeing?
Great. Thanks, Sandra. Um, Hey, folks. So we're going to talk a little bit about the federal budget that was passed this summer. The budget is believed to be the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in a single law in U.S. history. And we've heard the like one big beautiful bill, but we know the truth that it's really one big beautiful bill for the billionaires, for the ultra wealthy. It's estimated that the top 1% of Americans will receive 117 billion in new tax cuts in 2026 alone. And while, they're getting richer and richer, what's happening to us, right? There's 10.9 million Americans that will lose their healthcare coverage by 2034. And in particular, people of color will bear the brunt of this disinvestment, with over half of all Native, Black, and Latino children in the US being affected by the SNAP and Medicaid cuts. And again, in addition to cutting our social safety net, the ICE detention budget was increased by 365% in this budget. So, the rich get tax cuts, ICE gets more money to come after our communities, and we're left having to forego medical procedures, ration our medications, go hungry, and risk death because we can't afford care. And some of these provisions, it's going to take a minute for us to see the effects, and some of them won't come into effect until after the midterm elections. Next slide, please. So to break this down and make it really hyper local, I have this little chart on the left that was made by the Institute for Taxation and Economic Policy. They do extensive research on, breaking down how the top 1% are going to save money from federal tax cuts. And this is a breakdown in each state. So for example, the top 1% in my state where I live in Florida are going to save $12.8 billion next year from their tax cuts, right? And then on the right-hand side, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities estimates that for every $80,000 in tax cuts to the rich, there are 4 people that will have to go without health insurance, and we'll see a reduction in other benefits as well. So this is really, again, important to understand the choice that is being made at the federal government right now. And then folks we're gonna drop the link to the ITEP study, so you can have that. And then we're moving into a little video explaining the government shutdown that we're gonna play.
What do you mean the government is shut down? We are on day 9 of a government shutdown, and I'm here to explain what it is, what you should expect, and who is responsible for it, because over here, we critically think about the people who make our lives shitty. So at its core, a government shutdown happens when Congress fails to pass the budget on time, because yes, even the United States is supposed to follow a budget that you pay every time you get paid with your taxes. So during this time, federal agencies are required to stop all non-essential functions until Congress can pass a full budget. During a government shutdown, some U.S. services and agencies are shut down, and 40% of the workforce is put on unpaid leaves. So now that we have that out of the way, what is happening right now? Why is the government shut down right now? Remember how under the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, which is the same thing, millions of us actually got access to health insurance? One of the reasons why your monthly payments are not astronomically high in your healthcare programs is because of certain tax credits. These tax credits are set to expire, so unless there's a deal made, your healthcare payments are expected to double. So not only would Trump be responsible for absolutely gutting Medicare through the big bullshit bill, but also Republicans in Congress would rather protect massive tax giveaways for billionaires and corporations than protecting the programs that your family relies on to survive. The government shutdown right now is happening because Republicans do not want to give you and your family affordable health care. But why is this happening if Republicans control the Senate and the House? Exactly. But in the Senate, they are actually short of 60 votes needed to pass the spending bill, which gives the Democrats a little bit of negotiating power. Republicans are willing to suspend thousands of workers so that you and your family don't get health care. At a time where families are struggling to make ends meet, it is ridiculous to make them pay more for health care. Where is the money that we put into these programs? Because we pay for them. They're going to corporations. The sad truth is that Republican lawmakers are playing games with your lives because they are more scared of losing power than they are of their constituents facing a serious healthcare crisis. They are more scared of Trump than they are of your loved ones losing their homes because of medical debt. If this makes you angry, you're in my team. Read the caption to get involved.
Great. So that was a video explaining the government shutdown posted by Latinas en Marcha. The video was from day 9 of the government shutdown. And as of an hour ago, when I last checked, we are still on day 22 of a government shutdown, again, affecting so many federal workers that have been furloughed and laid off as a result of it. And, as was stated in the video, there's 24 million Americans who, without that tax credit to access their healthcare plans in the marketplace, are going to see their healthcare premiums rapidly increase if that issue is not resolved. And the other element of the government shutdown that we don't talk about as much is that it also benefits the ultra wealthy. For example, right now in the chaos of the shutdown, there's a couple of antitrust cases aimed at breaking up the big companies like Amazon and Apple that are put on pause in this time period. And again, that's a way that these corporations continue to benefit. I'll pass it to Sandra for our next slide.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabby. And we're so excited. We have over 500 folks on this call. Just want to remind everyone, we're seeing so many great comments come in to make sure that you're sending yours to everyone in the chat. We're seeing a lot of great comments and they're just going to the hosts and panelists. So we want to make sure that everyone gets to see your thoughts and ideas. So, all right, we talked about the ideology of these neo-reactionaries. Gabby shared some of the things in their agenda. Now, let's talk about who these guys are, because of course they're all guys. Who is funding and moving this agenda forward? So we know some names like Elon Musk, like Donald Trump, but we're curious if you've heard of some of these other names. We're going to run a poll now, and please tell us which one of these names you're familiar with. We'll give you just a minute to fill it out. All right, seeing some results come in. All right, seeing results coming in. If you haven't filled it out, take these last couple seconds to complete yours. All right, I think we have a really good critical mass here, seeing a lot of Elon Musk, JD Vance. It looks like Peter Thiel is really on the map, Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg. So well, we can just go ahead and share the results so y'all can take a look as well. And we're seeing a lot of names up here that we're not as familiar with. And, you know, it's not really a coincidence, right, that we don't know some of these names. But we are going to get into it and pull the curtain back and share who they are and what they're up to. So, Gabby, who are these other guys, these new names on here that we see, and what are they up to?
Cool. Yeah, so we'll get into the lesser known folks in a second. But we, wanted to start with some of the folks that are, people are a little bit more familiar with. So Elon Musk, we all know him, very public billionaire puppet master, who was very active in the first half of the year. He poured millions into Trump's campaign. And recruited like-minded billionaires to help run Doge and in this neo-reactionary vision that we discussed. JD Vance, the vice president, is really like a perfect example of somebody who has been handpicked to carry out this billionaire agenda and to really target federal workers, as you can see in this quote. And we'll talk about some of the billionaire backers that have funded, really JD Vance's entire political career, like Peter Thiel. And there's also a couple of names that we wanted to mention that we won't dig into today. These are some of the more well-known tech leaders who are really propping up and benefiting greatly from Trump's agenda, even if, like in the past, they weren't as aligned with Trump or as aligned with the Republican Party. And those are, the names we all know: Jeff Bezos from Amazon, Tim Cook from Apple, Mark Zuckerberg from Meta, Sundar Pichai from Google/Alphabet. But like I said, we'll focus on some of the lesser known folks in this presentation. Next slide. Great. So we're going to start with Palantir, which from the poll, it seems like folks are already a little familiar with Palantir. So it's a company that develops and sells surveillance technology that has helped ICE to carry out deportations of our immigrant neighbors and has allowed the Israeli military to carry out the genocide in Palestine. Palantir is a prime example of how tech billionaires are profiteering from fear, surveillance, and the assault on our democratic rights. They currently have a $30 million contract with ICE to use AI and data mining to track immigrants, and a $10 billion deal with the US Army. So who's behind Palantir, right? So Palantir was founded by Peter Thiel, who's a venture capital billionaire, also the former CEO of PayPal. He was an early Trump donor and a major funder to JD Vance's political career, and a lot of the reason why JD Vance was picked to be the vice president. Folks like Peter Thiel now have direct access to Trump. He's written about getting rid of elections and democracy because he doesn't trust people with big decisions. As you can see in the quote, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." He also, really dislikes higher education, has, funded college students to drop out of college so he can fund their tech startups. And then we have Alex Karp, who's currently the CEO of Palantir. He is obsessed with this idea of like the superiority of Western culture, also a really outspoken supporter of Israel. So why is a company like Palantir significant to us? I think first and foremost, they're designing and feeding the deportation machine that is kidnapping our immigrant neighbors. And secondly, they've been tasked by Trump to build a master database of our personal information. And that has really ominous authoritarian implications, especially as, they're profiting from the surveillance that we're seeing as our cities are getting occupied, as the attacks on free speech that we're seeing on college campuses, and all the other attacks on our civil rights. And most importantly, most public pension funds in the United States are invested in Palantir stock. by virtue of them being included in the S&P 500. So there's a lot of really meaningful opportunities to explore divestment strategies from a company as harmful as Palantir. Next slide, please. So we're gonna dig in next to Jeffrey Yass, who is the richest man in Pennsylvania and has really over the last year grown in his national political influence. But we're gonna start with a great video from More Perfect Union that has some direct quotes from Yass.
One of the most powerful people in America seems to think that inequality doesn't exist.
What's the difference between a billionaire and a guy who's making $100,000 a year? They're both at home watching Netflix, and they're both on their iPhones, and they're both, listening to the same music. The disparity between how rich people live and how poor people live in America has never been smaller.
Jeff Yass is a mega billionaire. He's the richest man in Pennsylvania. And he likely pays a smaller percentage in income taxes than you do.
We're almost at a point in America that everybody has all the stuff they need. No one's hungry, no one's cold, no one doesn't have some basic health insurance. No one doesn't have some basic health insurance.
Yass.
So y'all are welcome to watch the rest of the video on More Perfect Union, but beyond believing that somebody that makes $100,000 is poor, and that poverty doesn't exist in this country, and that apparently we all have universal health insurance. Jeff Yass is a co-founder of this group called Susquehanna International. It's a high-frequency trading firm that plays a middleman role in the stock market and has a very, very large stake in TikTok. Yass is known for being a really staunch libertarian, who really believes in abolishing public education. And he's contributed to a lot of politicians in Pennsylvania that have expanded the school voucher program that has taken money away from public school budgets. And we'll hear folks from Pennsylvania a little bit later on talk about their campaign. But beyond Pennsylvania, Yass has really started making a lot of political contributions in 18 different states, again, with this goal of school privatization, and has already become a top donor in Texas, Ohio, and the state that I live in, Florida. He was also a top campaign donor for Trump in the 2024 cycle. And recently gave $16 million to the MAGA PAC that's also tied to Trump. And again, he's gotten a lot of concessions with Trump on the, and really moved him away from the efforts to ban TikTok. We'll go to the next slide. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about Antonio Gracias, who is a billionaire who founded Valor Equity Partners, which is a private equity and venture capital firm. He's a longtime bestie of Elon Musk, and an investor in many of Elon Musk's companies, including most recently raising capital for xAI. Gracias was the first leader of Doge's immigration task force and really an early architect of Doge. He also currently serves on the board of the University of Chicago. He spent the first part of this year spreading a lot of lies about non-citizens voting that he was never able to substantiate. He has And in the immigration task force that he led, he was in charge of weaponizing confidential data from the Social Security Administration, Homeland Security, Health and Human Services to really target immigrants, and also focused on cuts to the Social Security Administration to make it harder for seniors to receive the resources that they need.
And Gabby, I know we've seen that he's actually not at Doge anymore. Can you tell us how that happened? Did he leave? Was he driven out? What's the story there?
Yeah, so excellent question, Sandra. So Valor Equity, right, manages the about $2 billion worth of public retirement funds from 9 pension funds. So these are the retirement funds where a lot of union members, specifically public sector union members, where their retirement money is held. They have a stake in about $2 billion worth of those pension funds. And there, ironically, this man is in charge of managing that money, but was also at the same time gutting government services and like harming, the federal workforce. So the American Federation of Teachers and many others brought attention to this conflict of interest, started writing to the pension funds, and it resulted in Gracias leaving his volunteer appointed position in Doge. And I think this is a really excellent example of how this alignment with Doge was really bad for Gracia's Valor Equity business model.
So, Gabby, from what you've shared, we see that these billionaires, their hands are in private equity, surveillance tech, and then we have TikTok, which many of us know, some of us use. Are there any other places these guys own that we might be familiar with?
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Airbnb in this next slide. So we have Joe Gebbia here, who's the billionaire co-founder and current board member of Airbnb, who's really known as the like chief design officer of Doge, and also a very close friend of Elon Musk. So most folks on the call, I'm assuming, are familiar with Airbnb. There have been campaigns over the last decade to expose the gentrification that Airbnb has fueled across the world, as well as, uh, the illegal listings that they've had in Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Joe Gebbia is also a really good example of the billionaire tech bros who had this sudden shift to supporting Trump. And he claims that he left the Democratic Party over immigration policies because, quote, they're letting in criminals and dangerous people. Um, so I'll read the quote right here. So this is how he describes his work in the federal government. I'm bringing my designer brain and startup spirit into government. My first project at Doge is improving the slow and paper-based retirement processes. So, he's tasked with reworking the retirement system at Doge. He said that he wants to make federal workers feel like they're going to the Apple store for their retirement. This is obviously raising concerns to have a private actor with no government experience in charge of cost cutting the retirement process for federal workers that are already under attack at Doge. And his involvement in Doge has been really harmful to Airbnb, and Airbnb has spent the last several months trying to distance themselves from Gebbia. They've removed him from their philanthropic arm that was focused on housing, on refugee support services. And they've really tried to distance themselves from him, but the facts remain that Gebbia on the board and two of the other co-founders control 79% and have 79% of the voting power at Airbnb. So that I think concludes our little session on some of these lesser known public faces that are propping up Trump's agenda. I'll pass it back to you, Sandra.
Yeah, thank you. So Gabby just shared these guys who have seemingly endless wealth, right? And resources to use on things like influencing election. But let's talk about just how much money we're actually talking about here. We're going to give you a poll and ask you how much wealth do these six men, just six individuals, six men have? So we'll give you a moment to fill out this poll. Is it enough to pay off medical debt for everyone in the country? Is it enough to pay off student loan debt for private student loan debt for everyone in the country? More than your entire state budget, more than the GDP of 150 countries, enough to address the housing crisis for all families in the United States, because there is a housing crisis, despite what Jeff Yass just told us. And is it $590 billion? Is it all of the above? All right, see a good critical mass coming in here. And if you said all of the above, you are correct. So we're talking about more than entire countries. So I know if I think about just how many times we've been just fighting for like a little bit more in our state budget or just a little bit more at the bargaining table for our union contract. Meanwhile, we have billionaires just hoarding this wealth and getting tax breaks, as we've seen. So should anybody have this much money? Of course not. So this is why we see them use the billionaire playbook, which we'll see on the next slide. They are trying to keep the money in their pockets instead of paying their fair share of taxes. We're going to keep it moving here to the next slide because I know folks are really excited to get to hear some of our speakers get into what we actually do about this. So want you to think about, what stood out to you, perhaps discuss after this webinar, but I want to keep us moving and ask, we just saw a lot of information. So should we all just go home, call it a day, throw up our hands? I don't think so. I don't think you would be here if that was the case, right? We're here because we know we can't just, wait for the next elections. We can't just rely on the courts to keep these really destructive, illegal tech billionaires from coming after us in our communities. We really need a strategy now. So I would love to ask you to please share in the chat, like, how are you organizing? What are you doing in your community with your unions? How are you taking action? And I would love for you to share as we move on to the next slide and just share our strategy, right? We need to take the crisis directly to the doorsteps of the billionaires. And I'm seeing a lot of folks sharing amazing strategies, boycotts, local organizing, direct action, some legislative, political work. Beautiful. So let's look at some examples of how the strategy is working already, right? We can move to the next slide. Going after corporate actors and billionaires isn't new. We've seen this for a long time in the boycott and divestment campaigns in support of Palestinian struggles for freedom. And as you can see from these headlines, we're forcing corporate actors to really change their behavior and their complicity in Israel's apartheid and genocide. And our next portion, we're really excited to jump into our incredible speakers. If you remember that guy, Jeff Yass, that Gabby told us about, we are about to meet an incredible leader, an organizer who is leading work in Pennsylvania, taking him on with 1PA and the payback table. So such an honor to introduce Raquel Jackson Stone from 1PA to tell us all about the payback table.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sandra. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Raquel Jackson Stone, and I am the Harrisburg Legislative Coordinator for 1PA. 1PA, or One Pennsylvania, we like to abbreviate it because we're in the state, We're a statewide member-led organization building a progressive, multiracial movement rooted in Pennsylvania's working class communities. We are committed to advancing racial justice, economic, and gender justice with a particular focus on Black liberation. Through grassroots organizing and advocacy, we uplift the voices of communities directly impacted by injustice and work to ensure those voices are reflected in policymaking at both the state and local levels. Our members are working families, they're renters, seniors, and essential workers who are deeply invested in shaping a more equitable Pennsylvania. And we are, surprise, a member of the Payback Table, a statewide coalition of Pennsylvania's leading base building organizations who organize our families, our communities, and the greater public to hold accountable the billionaires and corporations who are hurting working people. Our coalition ultimately wants to redistribute wealth and power so we can have fully funded, thriving communities. So we are involved, and we've been involved for a few years because of billionaires like Jeff Yass. They invest heavily into extracting from our communities, and into manipulating our government to eliminate fundamental public services that we rely on, not only through not paying his fair share in taxes, but also directly through his challenges to education, like we saw earlier. We are involved in this larger Yes campaign because we have to organize enough people power to hold government accountable for protecting those we care about and resist this harmful billionaires agenda in every way possible. So we talked about Yes already a little bit. You showed his face, gotta love that. Our coalition leads the All Eyes on Yes campaign, which has been taking on PA's richest man, our Elon Musk, since 2022. And again, that's Jeff Yass. Can't say his name enough. Gross. Yass runs a global financial firm, and a lot of his wealth comes from investments in TikTok. Yet another tech and financial billionaire. And over the last decade, Yass has reshaped Pennsylvania's political system around his personal vision by giving tens of millions in campaign donations and lobbying. He's outspent the top 10 corporate PACs in Pennsylvania combined. Like combined, his agenda is to privatize our schools and keep taxes low for billionaires and corporations. He's increasingly working on the federal level, as we just saw highlighted a little bit ago, and also in other states like Texas and Florida. So what we actually do about this, I just talked a lot about the problem that he is. Pennsylvania is a huge state on top of that, and it's made up of a lot of different communities. So a lot of the work with the All Eyes on Yes campaign is ultimately about building statewide power, specifically to reduce the power and wealth of billionaires like Yes. So what does this look like in real time? The sort of first and major thing that we do, the way most people start interacting with us, is our popular education trainings. We inform the public about Jeffrey Yass and billionaire influence, educate on the web of connections that comprise this influential network. And we inspire working class solidarity to resist the influence. We train hundreds of people across the state in different regions of different races who speak different languages in a common training curriculum. Another thing that we do, or really the reason why we do this popular education, is to make Yass a household name. We do this through, in addition to our training, to make sure that every community knows who he is. We do this through press and media and research. Our campaign website, alleyesonyass.com, has an up-to-date tracker where Pennsylvanians can see if their elected officials have taken money from Yass. Like I said earlier, Yass is our Elon Musk, but unlike Musk, he's more behind the scenes. So it's our job to make sure people know who he is and what he's doing. Now, we also love doing direct actions. We mobilize our members at key moments to build public pressure through direct actions. In June of this year, we took over Harrisburg to ask the questions directly to our legislators. Whose side are you on? The people or the billionaires? We have also been doing actions to address Jeff Yass's spending in Pennsylvania's Supreme Court race. I think the last time I saw, he put like $1.25 million into our Supreme Court race, which is so important. Anyone in Pennsylvania, vote yes, not yes. We hosted a great action outside of his corporate headquarters, Susquehanna International Group, here in Southeast Pennsylvania. And we are actually hosting another series of actions on Saturday across the state. 1PA is holding down the action in Philly outside of City Hall on Saturday from 12 to 1. If you're in the area, stop by. And then the last sort of major bucket of work that we've been doing on this campaign is elected engagement. We know that to see the changes we really need, we need our elected officials to work for us and to pass legislation that would make Jeff Yass and other billionaires pay their fair share in taxes. We have been working in Harrisburg, our state capital, building relationships and pushing our electeds to tax billionaires and the ultra wealthy. In the last 2 years, we've started to connect the dots between Yass's impact on the state and our state budget. Last year, we joined with labor partners to defeat Yass's attempt at passing school vouchers through organizing and direct action. We brought giant checks to the state capitol and asked certain legislators of both parties who have taken Yass money to void their checks that they got from him and to support public schools. And we won. This year, we're going on the offensive, launching a set of progressive revenue solutions that could fund and protect services like healthcare, education, housing, and environmental protections, all while the federal government tries to cut them. In the spring, we hosted a legislative hearing with House and Senate members with a common sense revenue solution. We called it our Pathways to Prosperity revenue platform that had the potential to bring in $14 million into the state. And since then, we have been meeting consistently and building with a core group of elected champions in the House and in the Senate on how to make these ideas a reality through legislation. And on October 29th, next Wednesday, we are launching this body of work in Harrisburg through a press rally event. We'll be working throughout this next year to build support amongst Democrats in the House and the Senate to tax billionaires, to fund things that our community needs, like healthcare, like SNAP, like education and transit. And we are also in the community getting folks ready to come and do this work themselves, to lobby and advocate on behalf of their own communities. So I want to talk about a few, successes of Payback, just highlight some of the work because, this is overwhelming taking on billionaires in your state. It's been overwhelming here in Pennsylvania. But just remember, a few years ago, not many people in Pennsylvania even knew about Jeff Yass. They don't know who he was. But today, people know who Jeffrey Yass is. And by raising his profile and making all of our elected officials pick a side, us or billionaires, we're beginning to change the power dynamics in this state. So we've gotten politicians to return donations from Yass and proactively speak out against him. And last year, we saw members of the Pennsylvania House leadership, many of whom have a long history of taking money from Jeffrey Yass. We saw them stand firmly against school vouchers and for historic increases to public education funding, and inevitably end their relationship with Yass. This wouldn't have happened without people power, making billionaires like Yass toxic and exposing their impact on us. And like I mentioned earlier, we have 2 direct actions coming up in this next week. Honestly, it is a week from now. It's past Wednesday. One in City Hall on Saturday at noon, if you're in the Philadelphia area, and another one in Harrisburg on the 29th from 1 to 2 in the main rotunda, if you can join us. Thank you so much. It's been great doing this work. I'm really happy to have the chance to share about some of the stuff we've been doing. And I kick it back to Sandra.
Thank you so much, Raquel. Oh my goodness. I hope folks are really fired up over this. I hope folks were taking notes because if you want the playbook to take on billionaires, Raquel just laid it out with that really incredible work. I hope folks will continue to follow and stay engaged if you're in Pennsylvania. I'm really excited to bring up this next very dynamic team. We're going to hear from a really inspiring team to tell us all about the organizing on Palantir. We'll hear from Crystal Zerveño from California Common Good, Kathy Carrillo from Mi Gente, and Sarah Cullinane from Make the Road State. So I'll hand it over to you.
Can we play the video?
Palantir and Peter Thiel are profiting from the ICE raids.
We're here to let people know who they are.
Peter Thiel is one of the biggest investors in Palantir, and Palantir is a mega surveillance company. They have gotten tens of millions of dollars in government contracts, most notably the $30 million contract for Immigration OS. It's a program that they use to target vulnerable communities to conduct raids.
So they've been making money of breaking families apart.
It is infringing upon our privacy, and it is taking away our freedoms.
Not only can they track immigrants, but they are looking to track American citizens. And I'm pretty sure none of us would want an algorithm to profile us and use that to determine whether or not we are criminals.
If we do not stand up to Peter Thiel, they're going to come after all of us.
They are using technology to bulldoze their political agenda, and that's not how a democracy works.
People might be willing to risk arrest because this is important.
Mi sobrino fue detenido el día 6 de junio. No sabemos dónde está. ¿Cómo lo está tratando? No lo sé cómo lo están tratando. Ellos están violando nuestros derechos. No somos criminales, simplemente somos trabajadores.
What we're seeing today is that a lot of us don't want to cave into that fear. The traffic is stopping right now. They're honking because they're in support. We're in Beverly Hills, and folks are here in support of migrant folks.
So, hi everyone. I'm Crystal Cermeño with California Common Good, an alliance of community and labor organizations across our state that is getting in gear right now to do our part in fighting back against the corporate billionaires, enabling the authoritarian regime and hurting our people. This action was led by LA organizers outside of TL Capitol in late August. It included community leaders from Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, who is an anchor and partner of California Common Good, members of DSA, and other local activists. ICE uses Palantir data to plan its immigration raids. Israel uses Palantir data to decide which homes to bomb in Gaza. Given its federal contracts, Palantir's data can eventually be used to decide which Medicare claims to deny, who should be kicked off of SNAP benefits, and even who gets kicked off the voter rolls. Thiel, Palantir CEO Alex Karp, and all of these tech oligarchs are intentionally breaking the existing systems so that there can be no going back, making way for their AI and their tech. And this isn't hypothetical, it is already happening now. And while Trump is terrorizing our communities with his ICE goons and his military occupations, these folks are slowly pulling off a technocratic coup and taking over the levers of control. But there's a growing movement in opposition that is committed to fighting back, particularly against Thiel and Palantir and the stranglehold that they have on our government and political systems. And this includes activists that are increasingly coming together under Purge Palantir, which I encourage you all to visit and sign up on. This is a very much in the vein of the Tesla takedown, a place where you can find more information about the company, and also where a lot of the activism that is happening is getting aggregated. And there is also a number of organizations across the country and globally that are taking action, raising questions about why worker capital in our pension funds are funding Palantir, which is actively dismantling the federal government and profiting off of the genocide in Gaza and the kidnappings and breaking apart of our families. Folks are also raising concerns about local contracts by cities, counties, and law enforcement across the country, the danger of their AI in decision-making around public services, and the concern we should all have around data consolidation and data sharing with the authoritarian regime. And for those of you that are interested, we're building a toolkit that we can share out, and you can take action locally against some of your contracts, and also investments that our cities and pension funds have in Palantir and Teal Capital. And Palantir's people are also engaging around Palantir's footprint in our colleges and universities. They're recruiting of our young people into their war machine and taking funding from our university endowments. So what I want to do today is tell you that there's a lot of onboarding and a lot of local campaigns that we can all be doing. And I want to introduce a couple of people who are at the front lines right now of doing really powerful organizing against Palantir and Teal and the influence that they have on our government, on our money, and on our young people. So I'm going to first call in Kathy Carrillo of Mi Gente, who Mi Gente has a long history of running campaigns in the No Tech for ICE world in Trump 1.0, and they're back on it right now, engaging with our students in this current moment. So Kathy, I will turn it over to you.
Hi folks, it's so nice to be in the room still, about 500 people. It's incredible to know that so many of y'all are interested in this and what is needed to take the next step. I want to commend the constant calls for action that people are making in the chat, and how important it is for us to know that there is a place and space for everyone to participate when it comes to the fight against the billionaire oligarchy and what we're facing, not just at the federal level, but also at the state and local level. Mi Gente, I dropped into the chat. Mi Gente was part and an author in a report called Who's Behind ICE, in which we, 74 pages, if you're someone who loves to read like me, I would love for you to go into it and kind of understand more about what's happening in this moment. Like many of our speakers of war have talked about, this is the aftermath of so many things that had already been planted back from the 90s that are now coming to roost here in this moment. And so because of that, not only do we have an opportunity to aim and go after everything, each one of these different companies, including Palantir, but we also have to take really good care of what we currently have. If you have privacy laws locally, if you have anti-surveillance laws locally, what does it look like for you to hold the line? Do you know what that line is? Do you understand what the line is at the legislative level? In order to call for a general strike, do we have the system set up in place that will allow us to be able to pull something like that off, right? So there's a lot of aspects to that, but Mi Gente themselves has been taking a look at Palantir and how Palantir has received so much funding, over $40 billion worth of funding that will go specifically towards this immigration operating system that uses AI to target and prioritize people. The way that they do that is by extracting data from other sources that they already have, like probation, like IRS, like tax, like the tax records, like any other system that they've already have access to. Now they're going to start prioritizing our people, and we know that they're not going to be doing it based off of, based off of merit or based off of anything like that. It has to do with racial profiling, and like many of our speakers before mentioned, this is just one step towards a larger part of the puzzle, which has to do with surveillance on us all. Oftentimes, immigrants are the testing ground for how willing we are to stay quiet, because it doesn't quite touch us, even though we care, to see how much further they can push and make sure that you are not willing to call the things out that are happening in your life. If you own a Ring camera, go in and reevaluate. Talk about what true public safety means in your city and how those are connected to flock cameras. We've been following the policy. We've been calling for direct action. We're going to be moving with students who have been doing incredible work to get Palantir off of their campuses. Do you know if your local university or college campus has a contract with Palantir to be able to come in and recruit the young people that hold the intelligence and the ability for the reasons why they run the way that they run? It's time for us to take our people back, to take our cities back. And the way we do that is through asking the right questions. What questions can we ask? What records can we request? What transparency and accountability are we going to hold the companies accountable to make sure that we know what's happening in our cities, and not just post about it, not just go on TikTok, not just go on Instagram, but hold true community sessions so that our people, from the littlest person to the biggest person in the room, understand this very complex and oftentimes very like techie, wordy environment. But it affects us all. So how do we do that? If you're interested in learning more, getting resources to stickers, posters, flyers that you can pass out, please reach out to us at migente.net. You can find more information on there. If you're interested in joining a larger coalition that's already doing this work, please reach out, go check out purgepalantir.com so that you can get invited into the fight, not just on the immigration standpoint, but on what data, tech, and surveillance mean in the sense of privacy for us all. Privacy is power. I'll pass it back to Crystal.
And I just want to now invite in from Make the Road States, Sarah Cullinan.
Thank you so much, Crystal, and thank you, Kati. I want to just share a very brief call to action. So I know that sometimes when we see the amount of wealth and power that these billionaires have accumulated, it can be daunting. We can feel powerless, but if we can have 500 people out on a call on a Wednesday night or afternoon, we can bring thousands into the streets and we can take action together. And we are the many, they are the few. We are big and they are small. And when we organize, we can win. So one example, I want to go back to something that Gabby was mentioning in the beginning of the PowerPoint, or the presentation rather. Palantir is a corporation that many of the pension funds across our states are invested in. So these are the pensions of public sector workers like teachers and state workers and firefighters. Their pension funds are invested in Palantir stock because the stock is one of the sort of best performing stocks in the country due to all of the federal contracts that they've accumulated. And as taxpayers or as pension holders or as residents of our states, we have a voice in what happens with our pensions. So I want to give that as one example and one campaign that we're doing in the state of New Jersey, and that we hope that others can take on in other states. And that is to call on our pension funds, our public dollars, our public sector worker pensions, to divest from Palantir. Our public dollars, our taxpayer dollars, our union workers' pensions have no business being wrapped up with Palantir, and we have a voice in that. So I want to invite folks who are in New Jersey or nearby to join us on October 29th. There's going to be a hearing with the state pension fund. We're going to be testifying to urge the pension to divest from Palantir. We also have a petition that I'll put in the chat, and folks will sign on to the petition. And if you're interested in getting involved in New Jersey, or if you want to take this fight to your state, please sign up, share your contact information, sign up here with the organizers of this call, and there will be so many opportunities to get involved. I'm just so floored by the incredible turnout tonight and what that means, and grateful for all of the time and all the effort that's gone into this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Crystal, Sarah, Kathy, for energizing us with all of those strategies, the video showing us like how folks are really fired up. And I know folks on this call are super energized. We just have a final stretch for y'all to really talk about, if you're thinking about like, wow, look at what Sarah and Kathy and Crystal are doing. Look at what Raquel is doing. If you're thinking, I wish I could do that in my state. I wish I could take on folks like Jeff Yass and take on a corporation like Palantir. You can. So in every state, right, billionaires are spending money to influence elections, coming after tax breaks that should be going into your schools and communities, and really getting away with it. So it's our job to bring those folks into the light, as we just saw our really dynamic speakers talk about, and you can actually take action in your state. So we'll move on to the next slide to just give you a couple ideas about ways you can take action and get started. And we are going to just leave you with one tool that you can use to really get started on your campaign. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to our executive director of Acre, Saqib Bhatti, to share a new tool you can use to research and identify the bad actors in your state. So I will hand it over to Saqib to share on the Department of Class Solidarity.
Thanks, Sandra. Thank you all for being here tonight. Yeah, so how do you find your local billionaire? So yeah, as Sandra said, some of our partners just launched this website, classsolidarity.org. It has profiles on every single billionaire in the country. So if you go to the website and then click, if you go to the next slide, please. And if you click there on Find a Billionaire, on the next slide, we can see that it takes us to the People's Audit page. And then on the next slide, if you scroll down, you get to this list of billionaires. And the next slide, sorry, I know it's ridiculous with the slides because we did screenshots instead of a live thing. We see here that what we can do is use this drop-down menu to filter them by state. And what's interesting, actually, I think we went one slide too far. Go back, there you go, by state. And fun fact, there's a billionaire in 48 states. The only two states that don't have one, Alaska and Delaware. Every single state has at least one billionaire. And if you're in Delaware, you're pretty close to to other billionaires in other states. It's not Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, pick one. If we go to the next one, next slide, we can also filter them by industry. And so this right here shows the finance industry. So our goal is to eventually have full audits in every billionaire, but the ones that have the blue hyperlinks right now, those are the ones where we've started building out profiles. And really where we started is folks that are particularly in on ICE and involved with ICE. So on the next slide, you can see the deep dive on, if you click on Peter Thiel, I think maybe we might have, okay. Yeah, on Peter Thiel, which I guess we didn't, when the slides don't line up. Never mind. But yeah, so anyway, we discussed Thiel earlier, but if you click on the links, you can actually see more detailed profiles of these folks. And then if we can please go on to the next slide. At the top, you can click on where it says Chief ICE Officers, and that takes us to the other places. On the next slide, please. The other folks where we sort of have, list of folks who are actually really deep on ICE, and this continues if you scroll down, but we did not screenshot that. So this really is just like a starting point, a primer. Like I said, right now, we have sort of short profiles on all the billionaires. There's nearly 1,000 of them worth a total of $6 trillion. And the goal is for us to actually really build out more detailed profiles on all of them. Right now, we have detailed ones on 5 or 6. So let's try this out. Let's do a thing together. Can you please, on your phones, on your computers, go to classsolidarity.org and see if you can actually find a billionaire in your state and, drop it in the chat. If there's more than one, just pick your favorite. Let's actually try this out now and see how it goes. So it'll take a couple of seconds to do that. Yep, Phil Knight in Oregon of Nike fame, Musk in Texas, Lucas Walton, Illinois, Warren Buffett, tons of Phil Knight, Warren Stevens, Menards in Wisconsin. Yep. All these folks, right? Again, we know that every single billionaire is a policy failure. And so the reason why we're, really want to make sure everyone's aware of this resource is, like I said, these folks are everywhere. It's not just an issue of, oh, they're in California and New York. They are everywhere. And that means that we have a very target-rich environment. And so we need to take these folks on. We need to make sure they're paying their fair share, and we need to make sure that we're stopping them from profiting from the slide into fascism. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So wanted to make sure you are leaving with some homework that Saqib laid out to you. You can keep checking out that that website, share with your folks, work it into your campaign plan. And, just wanted to close out tonight by thanking our really dynamic panelists and speakers for really energizing us with hope in what's possible. And want to also thank our Acre team who put this on, Jessica Mollet, Francisco Garcia, and Mark Rodriguez, helping out to run this as well. And then, of course, finally want to give a shout out and thank all of you for being here. Of all the places that you could be on a Wednesday night, you decided to get together with some people you know, many people you didn't know, and decide these billionaires aren't going to get us down, and we're going to figure out how to build a better world together. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we will be sure to send you lots of follow-ups and keep you in the loop on other ones we have coming up.